It is 8 p.m. and here are the top stories we're following.
Mile High Stadium's on fire. Mile High Stadium on fire.
A fire at Empower Field burns through a section of seats, sending smoke across the metro.
We noticed a huge plume of black smoke that was transferring over the top of the stadium.
Dozens of people forced to evacuate. Tonight, the investigation into what started the fire gets underway.
And Aurora City leaders keeping quiet about Chief Wilson's future with the police department while still not denying her exit.
Can we get any sort of comment on just Chief Wilson, resignation,
No,
any of
I'm
that?
not going to know. It's really a matter for the city manager and our form of government. Thanks, appreciate it.
Denver 7 Investigates continues pushing for answers.
Plus, Governor Polis backs a bill taking a hard line against fentanyl dealers.
This effort will absolutely go a long way.
Black smoke billowed from Empower Field and Mile High today, which could be seen for miles across the metro.
That's right, a fire torched a section of seats, leaving a charred, melted mess in the club level section. Good evening and thanks for watching Denver 7 News on Local 3. I'm Bayan Wang.
And I am Danny New. The fire has been out for hours now, but not before spreading at least 1,000 square feet.
Take a look at some of the images from earlier this afternoon. Denver Fire says the fire started around 2:15. The stadium was empty, but there was an event on the second level involving about 100 people. Fortunately, they were able to safely leave the area.
So once fire crews entered the stadium, they found a fire burning in the suite area on level 4 and then in the seating area on level 3. Denver Fire says the plastic seats produced that dark smoke that we saw. That's due to the petroleum that the plastic seats are made of. But still, there is no indication of what started the fire. Denver 7 spoke with one man who was visiting from Delaware. He says he was on a tour visiting the stadium for the first time when the fire started.
I just came here for vacation, and today was my day to see the Broncos Stadium. About halfway through, there was a fire. We had to evacuate. Just smoke took over the entire field from the press box we were in. It was insane. At first it started off with like one seat on fire, and then it just took off. It was crazy.
Fire investigators are still trying to figure out how that fire was started. We'll keep you updated.
All right, lawmakers are taking new measures tonight to combat the fentanyl crisis in Colorado. Just today, we received these new numbers from Denver's district attorney. Over the span of the last 3 years, the number of cases involving fentanyl have nearly quadrupled. DA Beth McCann says her office received just under 90 fentanyl-related cases in 2019. Fast forward to 2021, nearly 350 fentanyl-related cases were filed. So far this year, the DA's office has received 160 cases. Now state lawmakers are pushing to find solutions and are introducing new legislation to target fentanyl dealers. Denver 7's political reporter Megan Lopez explains.
This was her final birthday, her 21st birthday.
If you take the time to ask Alden and Susan Globe about their daughter Madeline, they'll tell you she was a lot of things.
Compassionate, curious, smart. She was our life.
But there was also something she was not.
Not someone who was involved with the drug culture.
Madeline made a mistake. She took a pill she got from a friend, not knowing it was laced with fentanyl, not knowing it would kill her.
Our daughter was poisoned. She didn't die from a drug overdose.
Madeline is just one of the many faces of fentanyl deaths. Some longtime users, some first-time users, so many pictures of so many loved ones.
It's time for Colorado to do something and to get tough on fentanyl.
On Thursday, those families with their pictures joined a bipartisan group of lawmakers to unveil a bill to crack down on fentanyl. The bill increases the penalties for people selling fentanyl and lowers the amount in someone's possession that can be considered a felony.
The cutoff points are coming way down, which is critical.
It also holds the distributor liable for deaths caused by fentanyl they sell.
We are going to do everything we can to find that dealer, to figure out who is responsible and to hold them accountable.
There's an education element and a rehabilitation element requiring treatment for addicts. It also dedicates $20 million for Narcan and naloxone to be purchased. Despite the bipartisan effort, police departments say the bill doesn't go far enough.
I do commend the Speaker for working to address this issue. What I can say is that I'm very disappointed that possession hasn't been addressed.
Denver Police Chief Paul Payson says any amount of fentanyl can be deadly, so any amount should be a felony.
The people that are distributing this deadly poison They know exactly what the law allows at that felony threshold, and they are intentionally carrying just below that amount.
And he pointed out other less lethal drugs have harsher penalties than this.
Is everyone happy? No. But this is a solution that will work.
Lawmakers say this bill isn't a perfect solution, but it's a start. As for the Globe family, they hope distributors will be held accountable.
The best that our legal system could come up with in Boulder County was 60 days in county jail.
And they too see this bill as just the beginning.
Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
Some good reporting there, Megan. Thank you. It's also important to mention that there are plenty of conservative critics against the new bill. That criticism centers around there being no new punishment for fentanyl possession. Conservatives cite a bipartisan 2019 state law that downgraded some drug possession charges from a felony to a misdemeanor. The upcoming bill has nothing in it to reverse that policy.
Aurora Police Chief Vanessa Wilson is on her way out, but city leaders are still not confirming it nor denying it. Denver 7 Investigates was the first to report last night that the details of her exit remain fluid, but multiple high-ranking sources continue to say she's gone. Wilson's attorney says the chief has no plans to resign or retire, despite the city manager's suggestion.
And as of last Friday, outside counsel said there was no intention to terminate Chief Wilson, no intention to push her out at all. And then on Monday, the city manager called Chief Wilson. He called her, insisted on having a Zoom meeting with her on Monday, and said, I want to talk about an exit strategy.
It's fair to say the city manager is trying to force her out.
Well, I think it's several people, but certainly when you ask somebody for an exit strategy, it does appear that there's a big problem.
We're told Chief Wilson is out of the country on vacation, and her attorney believes the move was calculated. We asked Mayor Mike Coffin about her leaving the department today, but he had no comment. Now, Aurora's city manager has the final say in if the chief stays or goes, and again, our multiple sources maintain Wilson is out. So there is the possibility a legal battle is brewing. You can find Denver 7 investigative reporter Jennifer Kovaleski's original story, along with the history of Wilson's time as chief, right now on thedenverchannel.com.
All right, a coffee shop in Denver was forced to close this week after being evicted from its space.
The owner of Kabad Coffee says that she never missed a rent payment nor caused any trouble, and yet now she finds herself out of the shop that she worked so hard to build.
Rob Harris met her today and has her story.
Yeah, so guys, if the name Kabad Coffee rings a bell, it might be because you've passed it in DIA. But that's actually not the original location. The original was in North Denver off Northfield Boulevard. Maluia Halamariam is from Ethiopia. That's the birthplace of coffee. She says she always dreamed of starting her own business and sharing her love of coffee. So she did that in 2019 when she opened Kabad Coffee and signed a 10-year lease for the space. In the lease was a clause that said that she could remain the only coffee and breakfast shop in the shopping center, which she says was important to her survival as a small business going up against big-name chains. But Maluia says a new management company bought out the space and began pressuring her to sign a new lease that would allow competing chains to move in next door. In late January, COVID staffing shortages caused her to temporarily close her shop, but she didn't know at the time that she would never get the chance to reopen it. Her management company evicted her following the COVID closure, but is still requiring her to pay rent until a new business leases out the now empty space.
It's my life, my kids' investment, and I work hard. Why they take advantage of it? Why they do that? They can do other people's like that? Why me? It's painful.
Maluia is now fighting her former management in court. She says she shouldn't have to pay rent on the space she was kicked out of when she had every intention of staying in business there. She says she hopes to someday be able to open again in the same neighborhood, which she loves so much. Now, I did reach out to the attorney representing the Complex Management Company for their response, but I have not heard back yet. Guys.
Thank you, Rob. And that is just so sad to see for her. Well, we haven't talked about COVID as much recently since cases have generally been low. But for the first time since the Omicron surge in January, there has been a week-to-week increase in new infections. State health officials reported 2,488 new cases on the week ending on Sunday, which is up from the 1,598 cases the previous week. To put that in perspective, last week's number was similar to that in June 2021, which was a relatively low period of the pandemic. However, if cases do rise further, it could be hard for the government to supply free testing, treatment, and vaccines like before. On Monday, the White House said that it is essentially out of COVID relief funding and is now requesting $22.5 billion in funding from Congress.
So these funds, the $22.5 billion that we requested from Congress, is critical to our ability to have no disruptions in the short-term plan, the short-term preparedness efforts to keep people safe while we're facing what may be coming our way next. Again, it's about preparedness and public health to keep people safe. It's about having the tests, the treatments, and yes, the vaccines necessary so that everybody has all the tools that they need to not just survive, but thrive through this pandemic.
The White House says there's not much left of the $1.9 trillion of the American Rescue Plan. About $250 billion is allocated for cities and states. The Denver Post did a roundup of municipalities to see how they would spend the money, and most would put it toward broadband services and other infrastructure projects.
Coming up on Denver 7 News at 8, we go one-on-one with Douglas County's choice for superintendent.
I really think there's so much more that we have in common than that which divides us. Let's work towards our common ground.
Mostly clear skies tonight, breezy as well with overnight lows in the mid-30s. A nice warm-up headed our way as we get into the weekend. I'll have your weekend forecast coming up.
And a surprise fan goes wild for a banjo player in Boulder.